What's going on, everybody? This is Aaron Trevino here, back with another wonderful episode in the beautiful state of Texas. And today we have an investor from Michigan. We have Eric Tomei from the Detroit, Michigan area. How are you doing today, Eric?
Aaron, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to sit here and talk with you. Yeah, I am doing great. Greetings from Michigan, everybody. It was 75 degrees today, by the way, just to let the rest of the United States know that we do have good weather in Michigan.
It's funny. I was just going to ask you if you were staying warm, but I guess y'all are doing all right.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? It's suntan weather here. People wear shorts in Michigan when it's 45 degrees, much less now at late October at 75. So it was a beautiful weekend, beautiful day, and it's been fantastic weather here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how y'all do it. I see guys on TV, maybe at the Packers games or they're wearing shorts outside. So I don't know about
It's that cold Midwest. You got to have that cold Midwest blood, Aaron.
that. That's awesome. I love it. But I'm interested. Obviously, I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast, and I find it interesting. You wear a lot of different hats. Real estate it isn't your I guess your the first profession that you came into. If you wouldn't mind, can you kind of give us a bit of a background on who you are and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. And you're 100% right. I am originally and still am actually, I've been a physical therapist for 21 years in the Metro Detroit area. I've been doing real estate. I consider it full time for probably the last 15 years. I kind of just had two full-time jobs for a while, and it's easy, but a bit of a balancing act, to juggle that sometimes. My profession is treating people and helping people, and real estate is much like that. You really are solving problems, providing solutions to people, and really giving them a sense of family and community with the problems that you can solve, because really people care about three things: their family, their health, their money, and where they're living. I guess so that's four. So I really can't do math that well, right? So but that's really what they're concerned about. And honestly, real estate is truly a blessing because it solves a couple of those major life stressors for people.
Absolutely, well said. And it's interesting how you have that outlook or that perspective, really kind of seeing that as a necessity, and really filling that gap and giving people a great service.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, real estate to me, Aaron, does not feel like work. I'm not saying that it's not work behind the scenes. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that real estate investors do that aren't shown on HDTV or aren't shown on the final product. When you say, hey, we closed this deal and we made this much money, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't see. But you know what? The journey is always fun, especially when you're taking the journey with the right group of people.
Definitely. And not only that, kind of that group of people, but I guess kind of to piggyback off that, one interesting word you mentioned was community. And it seems like in these past few years, especially, people are really I don't know about starving, maybe that sounds dramatic, but are really yearning for that sense of community. Could you maybe talk about how you're able to do that through real estate?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so important. I think it's a very underutilized concept, because when you provide housing and shelter to people, you are helping and building your community, whether it's in your hometown or whether it's in someone else's hometown. You are providing a valuable service to people that you might not think of as the real estate investor, because you're worried about so many other things: the numbers, the project, the contractors, the investors, the money. You're worried about so many other things, but really the bottom line is we all do it to provide a service for people, and serving people is really the greatest calling you can have. So that's what I've been blessed to do here, mostly in Michigan, certainly in some other areas of the United States. But really, that's one of the things that I continue to kind of have my mission be about, or is to serve people. I do it in my regular job, and it's just a very easy transition to do it into real estate. And that's why it excites me, because you can do it in so many different ways and so many different avenues.
Definitely. And I was going to allude to that as well. Really the key words there that you mentioned were serving people, right? And I think it's so cool how you're able to do that, obviously, as a professional, during, your work as a physical therapist, but also on the real estate side. And I know we talked about it before our session here. But it's not very often that we have someone on the show that's also an author. And there's a book titled that you wrote, and it's called I Miss My Dad. If you wouldn't mind, would you tell the audience a bit more about what motivated you to write this book?
Yes, I absolutely will. And thank you for bringing that up. Very few people know that I am actually an author, and I do not necessarily publicize it or tell people about it, not because I'm not proud of it, but it's just, one part of, many parts of my life. But yes, so the reason I wrote that book was my dad, unfortunately, passed away of a massive heart attack unexpectedly in January of 2006. I Miss My Dad was my way of providing closure to myself, to write that as a process of healing, because again, you are really, really trying to process anytime you have a major loss in your life. So that was my way of processing that huge loss in my life, was to write a book. And through that process, when I lost my dad, I was 30 years old, and it really doesn't matter if you lose your dad at 5, 15, 25, 35. It does not matter. It doesn't matter even if it's your dad. It could be your mom. It could be anybody who's close to you. Everyone's going to handle that grief a little bit differently and process that grief a little differently. And really, it catapulted me into, believe it or not, real estate investing, because in 2007, that's when I actually started my real estate investing career. And it was because of my dad. My dad had a business and had a company when he died, and the company's still going on. So the business part of me and the entrepreneurial spirit was always in me, and I think that he instilled that in me. And I'm eternally grateful that he did, because I feel like it's brought me to so many different avenues. But writing that book was almost a cathartic experience in terms of launching my career as a real estate investor and entrepreneur. So it was something that I'm very grateful that happened, even though the situation surrounding the book was certainly challenging and tough at times.
Absolutely, Eric. And I find that so interesting how you mentioned the word cathartic, right? It gives you a sense of, I guess, that relief, that closure that you were yearning for. And I'm curious as well, when you put the pen to the paper, did you anticipate this becoming a full-fledged book, or are you just kind of scribbling?
No, I did not at all think this was going to become a full-fledged book. But you know what, though, when you have time to think and you've got a pen and paper in your hand, my goodness, what comes out on, first of all, it was a little notepad. Then it was a notebook. Then it was a couple notebooks. And I'm like, you know what? I think we got a book here. I don't know how many people are going to read it, but I think we got a book here. So I actually, and I never did it, Aaron, for sales or for anything like that. I truly, truly did not. I think I sold only about maybe like 600 copies. But what happened was, believe it or not, in 2007, to promote the book, I started a Facebook page. And back then, I think I got it to 75,000 followers or 75,000 whatever likes or whatever it was. And that was actually really good, because I used to post on it, just hearing people from all over the world sharing their experiences with their losses. And that also helped the healing process as well. Hearing from, believe it or not, random strangers who were, going through the same type of experience. And most of them did lose their dad, but others lost their mother, someone close to them, God forbid, a child. I mean, everybody, it was a very, very emotionally charged page. And I would just simply type, please share with me your thoughts on the anniversary of your loved one's passing, and, or what was the date of that passing. And, sometimes you'd have 300, 400 comments of people just sharing and then commenting on each other's comments. So I'd like to think that in some small way, it really helped people get their feelings out, for something that either brought them, pain, or remembering their loved ones in a wonderful way.
Absolutely. And that's definitely such a powerful thing, right? That really shows the true power, not only of, you having the courage to put the pen to the paper, but also the power of technology, and really how quickly a message can not only spread, but spread for the benefit of thousands of strangers who you've never met in your life.
It was amazing, Aaron. Really, like I didn't think anything of it. Like I look at the page one day and I'm like, oh, okay, there's 500 followers. Then I look at the next day and there's like 800. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to continue to type and continue to interact with the community. And nobody in that community ever reached out. Some people reached out personally. But I also had to watch it because you're dealing with strangers, and I don't know what the emotional level of what they're going through is like. And I'm certainly not a licensed psychologist, even though I majored in psychology in college before I went to physical therapy school. So, but you really had to be very delicate with the situation because you're dealing with people's emotions and the empathy that you have to share with them on a daily basis, or almost every you know almost every other day or every day was very, very emotionally charging for me, because I felt like the connection that I was having with complete strangers was hopefully truly helping them in some way.
Absolutely. And I find that so interesting as well. And I noticed on one of your social pages, it talked about Open to Hope. Could you talk, a bit about what Open to Hope is?
Yeah, so the Open to Hope Foundation was a foundation I connected with very, very early in the when I was writing I Miss My Dad. And it was a foundation that really provided a lot of great resources for people who are going through grief. That in its grief really related to any loss of the loved one. That could be the cousin, spouse, friend, parent, grandparent. It really was a very, very good organization because they understood exactly what the grief process was like. And there was a professional resource on the page that people could look at for any kind of outreach in case they were struggling and they didn't know where to go, because some people don't really like to admit that they're struggling with grief, and that's okay because everybody handles grief completely different. There is no right or wrong answer to handling grief, especially when you're going through such a challenging situation as the loss of a loved one. So I put that on my page as a resource, and I did have connections with the people who formed that company. Unfortunately, I do not, just so that everybody knows, I do not have, I'm not close to that organization anymore, only because it's still not it's a great organization. I just have lost touch with them over the years. It was nothing of a falling out situation. So please reach out to them. Open to Hope Foundation. They're a very, very good resource for grief, any kind of issues related to grief.
Well said. Well said. And, maybe without spoiling the book too much, I know you probably went into greater detail there, but if you wouldn't mind, what's the best piece of advice you ever received from your dad?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think the best piece of advice I think I ever received from him is that, and I'm paraphrasing this, so these might not be his exact words because it's been a while, but what other people think of you is none of your business. You have to do your thing. You have to be authentic. It's okay if sometimes people don't like you. It's okay if, you rub people the wrong way or whatever. We're all humans going on the human experience. And you know what? You're not necessarily going to connect with every single 8 billion people on the planet that we have, right? But I think that that's what he gave me, I think, the most, besides like a strong work ethic and a loyalty to people and always putting a team first. He always made sure that I didn't get too caught up into what other people's opinions of you are, and just authentically be yourself for who you are.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to be said for that, especially nowadays, with, not to blame it on technology, but we're very hyper focused on the self and outward appearance, and, maybe the way we look, the way we talk, whatever it is.
Well, Aaron, when 2007, I mean, we hate to age ourselves here, but there was no TikTok, there was no Instagram selfies. I mean, there was no selfie sticks. I don't think I can't really remember that far back, I guess, but technology, you're right. Especially social media technology has advanced so much that I had Facebook. It's my technology. Twitter was probably around, but I was never on it. So yeah, now there's so many other mediums, social media mediums, to take something viral. Again, not my goal of what I Miss My Dad was about. That wasn't to take it viral. It was just to help people that were going through a tough time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can definitely, see that. And I'm curious as well, if you wouldn't mind maybe elaborating a bit more, how do you think after a father's passing, how does that affect the family dynamic soon after that?
Oh, great question. And I can just give you my experience with my family. So my dad was the head of a company. He was the owner of a company, and it was an unexpected death. And I will tell you this. So I am the only son in the family. I have two sisters. Thankfully, thank God my mother is still alive. Um, but it was complete upheaval. And I literally looked at myself in the mirror probably about an hour after I realized that he died. And I thought to myself, okay, well, this kind of seminal event that happens in your life is either going to tear the family apart or it's going to bring you closer together. Thank God it brought our family closer together. But I will tell you, I did not feel like a true adult until that happened. And I realized it's like, okay, you're the driver of the bus now. So, and I was 29 years old when he passed. So it's not like I was not an adult. I mean, by any stretch. But I really, really felt like that's really what kind of turned it around for me. Not that I was going on a bad path, but it's like, okay, life is precious, life is short. You got to kick yourself into high gear. So, and that's really what did it for me. So
Absolutely.
yeah, in answer to your question, it changes a lot, and your role in the family changes a lot.
Mm.
Everybody looked to my dad, for not everybody, but most people look to my dad to fix things around the house, to handle finances, to do those kinds of things. That wasn't around anymore. And my grandparents, his parents were still alive when he passed. So it's a little bit of a role reversal when you're taking on some adult roles with your grandparents. So it was
Mm.
something that I adjusted to, because you have to adjust to the situation. But it was good, but it was a little weird at first. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it takes a little bit to get used to, but you grow together and you grow stronger together, and you move forward and in the memory of your loved one.
Absolutely. And, I find that so interesting as well. It reminds me, I want to say it was Bronx Tale. There was an Italian mafia movie and it was,
And I'm half Italian, actually.
are you
So
really?
I'm 50% Italian. My dad was actually born right outside of Rome.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
neat. I guess
Yep.
maybe this is sort of fitting culturally, but um, I want to say it was after, I want to say it was at the end of, was it Bronx Tale? It was one of the Italian mafia movies. And they said that for, a true man to live, his father would need to be gone. Do you think there's some validity to that?
I don't know, Aaron, because you know what? Honestly, if the situation was reversed, of course you'd do anything to have your loved one back. And honestly, and I'll be perfectly honest with everyone who's listening to this, my dad and I did not have the greatest of relationships. We were very opposite. And it's not that I didn't love him. It's just that we could not find a lot of common ground. And I know that that's obviously the case for some people, not all. You love and revere your parents, but sometimes, there's things you just clearly don't agree on, and you're opposite, and sometimes opposites attract and sometimes they don't. And that's life, and that's okay. But to get back, answer your question, for me, I found that was true. I don't know if that's the way that everybody feels, again, because I think grief is such an individual process, and how you process that is really how you're going to live the rest of your life and kind of set the precedence for you and your family. So certainly for me, I felt that, but I don't know if I can say the same for everybody in every single situation.
Absolutely. And I love that distinction there, how it sounds like you're saying this isn't, processing that sort of grief and that sort of despair. It's not a one size fits all. Everyone thinks and acts differently.
Absolutely. For me to sit here and say that, this is my way and everybody should do it my way is completely ridiculous. I mean, everybody is an individual and everybody can process it, and no way is ever good or bad, right or wrong. It's how you as the individual process a major life event like that.
Absolutely. And, obviously I'm certain those were, as you probably alluded to in your book, those are probably some pretty tough times for you, kind of taking the reins and all these new transitions in life. But it didn't keep you down. Obviously, it catapulted you into where you are now. And if you wouldn't mind describing, I'm sure there was a lot of initial turbulence in the very beginning. Could you maybe describe the sort of momentum that you got to be able to get you even started in the real estate business?
You know what? I'll tell you, Aaron, it was pretty much just never giving up. I had a goal. I wrote a goal out. At that time, I wanted to be a single family flipper in the Metro Detroit area, and I did it. I flipped over 125 houses since 2007. And I've handled all facets of, a project, whether that's overseeing the general contractors, whether that's, just contributing money to a deal, and everything in between. So I had a goal. It was important to me. And it was being massively diligent with your time management, because again, I was working a full-time job, and you really have to be that ruthless about your time. You really cannot waste a lot of time if you're planning on big things to happen in your life. And if you're not ready to take action on that, hey, that's great, but the things are not going to happen the way you want them to. So when, again, relating it back to my dad's passing, it was almost like a really good kick in the butt that I needed to jumpstart my life. And I wasn't unhappy with my job whatsoever at that time, but it was, you feel a calling that you want more, and you realize that life is short and you don't have time all the time, or as much as you think you have. So
Yeah, no, that's definitely well said. And it's easy to get in that rut, right? Maybe you're in a
it
role,
is.
maybe you're in a role you don't like, in a city you don't like, in a relationship you don't like. You could name a list of things to do, and it can be very difficult for people to take themselves out of that place and go in a different direction.
Right. It absolutely is. And you have a choice when that happens. You can choose to do that. And I guarantee you're probably not going to like the results, or you can gut it out and grind it out. And there were definitely tough days, and there were days of sadness and days of tears, and there were days of remembrance and happiness and everything in between. I guess the best advice I can give to people is your emotions can change within the hour, and none of it is right or wrong. You just go with what you feel, because your feelings and your emotions are your guide at that point.
Yeah, and I find that so interesting as well. Kind of you mentioning how it's neither right nor wrong. It's just kind of the feelings are kind of fleeting. They come and they go. And
Yeah. However, I will say that I am very unemotional about real estate investing.
yeah,
If you get too emotional about real estate investing, you are going to make problems and you are going to lose money. Guaranteed. I wish I could say on this podcast that I have an undefeated record where I have never lost money in a real estate deal. That is absolutely false. I have lost money on 3 houses. And it was painful. And when you get burned like that, or when you lose, you learn some lessons, and you hopefully get a little bit better, the next time around. So, you have to be very unemotional about the numbers in real estate investing, because if you're not, you're going to lose money for you, and you're going to lose money for your investors. And anytime you accept any kind of private money from an investor, you have a fiscal responsibility to them to do everything in your power to make a situation right.
absolutely. I mean, and it's one thing, losing your own money, but when you're having someone else invest with you and basically
Yes.
put good faith into you, it makes you have to do a good job.
Well, sure. I mean, you want to do a good job anyway, right? Because you're in this to make money. No real estate investor, hopefully, has ever signed up and said, I'm going to lose $20,000 in this deal, and it's going to be fun. Like, nobody's ever said that, right? So you go in with the best of intentions, and sometimes life will throw circumstances at you that aren't favorable, and you have to try to find a way out of it.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And I know you mentioned how you were, in the single family part of the business when you first started out. When you first started in the business, could you describe maybe what your first deal was and how you kind of got
Yes, I can absolutely describe it. And it was a deal I lost $5,000 on. So I always remember it. It was a flip house in St. Clair Shores. And admittedly, Aaron, I did not know what I was doing. My partner at the time did not know what he was doing. And the end result was very predictable and clear. We lost $5,000 on the house. Thank God we only lost $5,000 on the house, because through that experience, just backtracking those steps, I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did we not lose 20 on this house? We were very fortunate. And I know it's ridiculous to say that, you're losing $5,000 on a house is fortunate, but we could have lost a lot more. And thank God we didn't. But that was such a tremendous and valuable learning experience for me that I got to tell you, I went on a run where I didn't lose money on a house for an awfully long time after that. Although I will tell you that it was a kind of a double kick on the groin, because I was getting married very shortly after I lost money on that house. So that was kind of an interesting situation too. So but we can all laugh about it now.
Absolutely. I guess it's all smiles now. Maybe it wasn't so funny back then.
No, certainly not funny, but thank God.
Yeah.
Life is great in the fact that perspective shines light on all things. So
Sure. And that's that's great that you're able to learn from that. And it's really, like we talked about, kind of catapulting you to where you are now. Are you still in the single family space, or, can you kind of describe, the services and deals that you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the answer to that is, I think I try to get out of the single family space, but if a good deal happens, you got to take advantage you got to walk through the door of opportunity. So currently I do have one flip that I'm doing right now that we just literally closed on last Thursday, but the reason I'm doing it is obviously to invest in my multi-family business. And just to give some of the viewers like a little bit of my background, about the flip houses, but I also do have a company that I formed in 2021 with a bunch of the investors that I used to flip houses with. We have 12 units. Half of those are Airbnbs and half of those are long-term rental properties. And we're looking to continue to add to our portfolio into 2023. I own a 5-unit in Ypsilanti with another partner. And that's probably about, for people who don't know where Ypsilanti is, and I don't really expect anybody outside of Michigan to know that, it's probably about an hour west of Detroit. It's by Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan is, if that's a good frame of reference. I'm a limited partner in a 108-unit apartment deal in Kansas City, and I'm a co-owner in an 8-unit Airbnb hotel in Desert Hot Springs, California. So that's kind of my real estate Rolodex. And really my focus right now is more on the multifamily side. I've certainly made offers on multifamily in the past and self-storage buildings in the past, but my focus is really on multifamily and really just developing good teams of people to work with. And thank God I'm very, very blessed with not only great real estate friends, but great real estate partners that I team up with on my deals. Because honestly, you can do real estate by yourself, but it's going to take longer. You're probably going to make more mistakes, and your profit might not be as great. Because taking that journey with other people, they provide perspectives that you might not see, and that could really help in a deal.
Absolutely. And, I had heard this, I guess, a number of years ago. You've probably heard people say that real estate's a team sport. And when I would hear that, when I would hear it, I would almost kind of cringe. It almost kind of sounded, kind of corny or kind of beaten down, but there's a lot of truth to it. How are you able to kind of build that good team of people to be around you?
And it's such a great question, Aaron, because I got to tell you, some partners that I partnered with have been absolutely fantastic, right? And some partners, you know what? We're all human, and some partners can slip right under the radar and not be so great, right? So I think I think every real estate investor can probably tell you of an experience of a real estate transaction that probably didn't end up as favorable as they would have liked at the start when they started the project. But I can tell you that knowing on a personal level your partners as much as possible is usually the best way to go about it. If you have similar values, similar goals, and you can spend maybe about 1.5 to 2 hours over dinner talking about life and goals, and the conversation flows, and you really just get a sense of good energy and a good vibe from people, then that's something to probably pursue. Someone's probably telling you something that's probably a good thing. Now, every single person do I meet, do I get that vibe from? No, doesn't mean that they're bad people. It might just mean that, we just don't vibe on or jive on that level, which is completely okay, right? But picking your partners is just an absolute fundamental key to being any kind of success in real estate.
Absolutely. And when you talk about success in real estate, maybe someone can define that as my net worth, my portfolio, my
Sure.
cash flow, all these different words. What are you looking to build? What are you looking towards in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think everybody's definition of real estate success is completely different. Exactly how you said it, right? So to be perfectly honest, I mean, my goal, and I know this is such a cliche, but my goal is to achieve really financial freedom and to establish a legacy for myself and my family long after I'm gone. So honestly, I would like to clearly one day replace my income at my clinic. Again, not that I don't love being at the clinic, but that's my goal right now in life, and to continue to build my real estate portfolio, because I got to tell you, doing great deals with cool people is just a lot of fun. So my goal in 2023, to get a little bit more specific, I don't even have a set number of doors that I want to get or units that I want to get. Ideally, my goal is to probably participate in 3 to 4 projects in 2023, or the rest of 2022 going into 2023. That would be my goal.
Absolutely. And I love it. And I had to ask because, I guess as we kind of spoke about, I guess the quote unquote word success can mean many different things for different folks.
Right. Honestly, I mean, it would be, I've never been able to do real estate, Aaron, what would be considered full time, like 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, right? I've always just been doing a juggling act for most of my life. So it would be cool to transition into that experience at one time or another, hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, absolutely. And maybe we'd kind of spoken a bit about it before, but in this particular part of the real estate business, deals you're wanting to do, what's the most rewarding part about doing those deals and being a part of these deals?
I would say that the most rewarding part of any real estate deal is taking something from nothing, building it up, and seeing it turn into a success. Yes, the closing day is great because you get the money and the check and everything, but it's the journey there. It's the stories you tell. It's the problems you solve at 1 a.m. when nobody's around, that you really feel a sense of accomplishment, and that you're really taking control of your future and you're really the driver of your own bus. So that, to me, it's more, I guess I just enjoy the grind of the journey more so than anything, Aaron, which is, again, the checks are great. Everybody's happy. But I have said this to many people before, and I'll say it to everybody now. Real estate is kind of like my drug. Like, when you have it, you're glad you have it and you want more of it. But when you don't have it, you're always looking for it. And you want more of it. So that's how much I like real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I've always wanted to study more about very high performers. I don't have you ever heard of Tim Grover? He coached the late
Tim
Kobe Bryant.
Grover. I haven't actually.
Yeah,
The name doesn't ring a bell.
yeah, he's actually I haven't read any of his books, but I've just kind of heard a few of his little videos. And he was basically the man behind the man. He was the guy that was training Kobe Bryant, and he was talking
Oh,
about
wow.
when you're studying these very athletic, or not just athletic, but also these very high performers, they think in a way that maybe their peers wouldn't. So I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm your typical get up at between 4:45 and 5 o'clock every morning. I'm going to the gym. I have a routine in the morning. The routine does not deviate. It's very disciplined. It's very structured. It's also flexible, but yeah, that's me. You're going to try and get as much in as you can. My days are regularly, not even exaggerating, 18-hour days, between balancing family, coaching my kids, doing real estate, doing physical therapy. I need, my personal sanity is working out. So I have to do it really early in the morning. Otherwise it just doesn't happen. Right. So that's how I set myself for the day, so that I'm, a normal and sane person for everybody.
Yeah, well, we definitely want you to stay sane, that's for sure. And that's funny. I love it. Maybe there's I guess kind of talking a bit about, what we talked about before. Maybe someone is going through that period of loss, that period of grief, that period of hard times, that we all kind of stumble upon throughout life, that going through those hard times, and they're looking to get into the real estate business and have a good amount of success in it, like yourself. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to surround yourself with great people who have already done what you want to do. I think that that's the best thing that you can do. And that really goes to the power of networking. I know networking is, another buzzword, but really establishing great relationships with people who've already done what you have done, I think is the best gift you can give yourself if you're just starting in the real estate investing world. And there are people who are willing to donate their time, their resources, etc. They are out there. Now, it might not be the first person you talk to, but it might be the 10th person you talk to. And just don't ever give up. If you feel like this is what you really want to do, and you've got a burning desire in your heart to do this, then go for it. Do what you need to do. Seek what you need to seek. It will happen. It will just not be probably on your timeline, but it will be on a timeline. It just might not happen fast enough for you. Because again, we all have timelines. I'm guilty of this too. And I always want things to happen quicker than they are, but things happen when they're supposed to happen, not when you want them to happen sometimes.
Yeah, that's definitely well said there, Eric. Maybe someone's listening, they're in Michigan, they're down here in Texas, another part of the country, and they want to connect with you. Are there any, last words you could kind of give our audience?
Yeah, honestly, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on here. And this has been extremely enjoyable connecting with everybody. Honestly, I'm pretty much an open book. My email is my first and last name @gmail.com. Please reach out to me. I'm also on Facebook as well. If I can give any piece of advice to anybody starting out, or the experienced real estate investor, is be yourself, be your true self, and let the cards fall where they may, because you're going to like the fact that you can have success on your own terms.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a wonderful way to end our show here. Eric, I know I've mentioned it before. It's been great to get to know you a little bit about your background, kind of your story, and dealing with those hard times. And really just, I think everyone loves that story, that guy who goes through those hard times and ends up a victor, a champion like yourself. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Aaron, so much for having me. I appreciate you, your audience, and the time that you've given me. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Sure thing. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds great.